Hi everyone, welcome to this very last Q&A session of Go Short Online. I hope you're all doing well and fine and are healthy. As you hopefully know by now, we organized Go Short Online, which is an online alternative for our physical festival that unfortunately got cancelled, as you probably know. I'm very happy that tonight we are able to still talk with filmmakers about their films, the way they made it, the ideas behind the films, and of course, just to see how they're doing and hear more about them. The online festival will only take place until tomorrow. So if you haven't seen all the films that you want to see, please make sure that you will before it's too late. You have until tomorrow. And yes, more about the filmmakers of tonight. We have 3 filmmakers. You can see them now. First, we have Stefanie Kolk, who is the director of Eyes on the Road. Thank you very much for being here. Your film got selected for a European competition. Second, we have Nicolas Gourault, the director of This Means More, and his film got selected for a student competition. And last but not least, we have Marieke de Zwaan. She's the director of So I Stay, and that film got selected for a Dutch competition. Very nice to say is that we have 2 Go Short award winners behind here tonight. Marieke got the Go Short Award for Best Dutch Film, and Nicola won the award for Best Student Film. So congratulations with that again. Before we start, I'd like to say that as you can see, we have this chat function on the right side of your screen. So if you have any questions to these filmmakers, please drop them and I will ask them to them. First of all, I would like to start with a small introduction. I would like to ask you to introduce yourselves, actually. So, Stefanie, can I start with you? Can you please tell us a bit more about who you are, where you're from, and maybe about how many films you've made so far?
Hi, I'm Stefanie Kolk. I'm from the Netherlands, and I'm actually from Nijmegen. So, although I grew up there and I didn't go back anymore after I was 18 because my parents also moved away from there. I first had a short career in science. I did up to my master degree in biophysics, and then I realized I really wanted to make film, so I switched to film and I did the Film Academy. And this is my 3rd short film. And it premiered in Locarno, and it's been traveling a little bit, but now also a lot online. So
cool. Yeah, and we've screened your other shorts as well at Go Short, right?
Yeah, they were at the Dutch competition. That was Harbor was also there. Yeah, it was really nice. So I'm happy that I can show my film in my old hometown in a really nice short film festival. Yeah.
Nice. Nicolas, can you maybe tell a bit more about yourself?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. So I'm Nicolas Gourault, the filmmaker of This Means More. I'm French. This Means More is my first film. First time it was supposed to go in festivals as well. And so I come from background in fine art. I did like fine art studies and also visual studies in another school. And now I'm enrolled at Le Frénois right now. So the film This Means More is my first year project there, and I'm currently working on another one that will be hopefully finished by this summer and will maybe screen in the festival next year or the year after.
Yeah, let's hope so. That would be great. Marieke, can you maybe tell a bit more about yourself?
Yeah, I'm Marieke de Zwaan. I'm from Holland. And I graduated in theater in performance art. So actually, I'm always doing theater, and this was the first movie I made. Yeah, but now I'm also doing theater. So I actually would like to do more movie, but yeah, it's difficult to go in the world.
Yeah, to
To
balance.
change.
Yes, all right. Yeah, we will discuss and talk about that a little bit more later. I would like to start with Stefanie and talk about Eyes on the Road. To give a small introduction before we see a fragment out of the film, I would like to say that this is a film about three friends who are driving in a car and discussing, talking about something that happened to someone they know, and they all three have different kind of perspectives to this subject. But first, before we're going to talk about it, let's see the fragment.
Als zij niet seks hebben, dan hangt dat natuurlijk wel eens op de achtergrond. Ik zou er niet aan moeten denken.
Nee, ik ook niet.
Ik kan me ook wel voorstellen dat het voor Tim super moeilijk is om weer verliefd te worden op Lisa. Ik bedoel, je vriendin is toch met iemand anders naar bed geweest.
Ja, dat is natuurlijk niet hetzelfde.
Nee, ik zeg niet dat het hetzelfde is, maar het is natuurlijk niet elkaar als het invloed heeft op je seksleven, toch? Ik bedoel, het is ook gewoon seks.
Het is geweld, hè?
Ja, maar het is ook seks. Ja, dat is toch zo?
Yes, there we are again. Well, as said, this film is about three friends sitting in a car driving, talking about this very fragile and delicate subject. And I was wondering, how did you come up with the idea of this film? What was the intention when making it?
Yeah, so usually with my previous films, which are quite visual and don't have any dialogue, but with those films I work in a quite schematic way. Like I have a concept and I like work stepwise to expand my idea. But here it worked very differently. I just sat down with a glass of wine and I just started writing with the idea of a conversation in a car, and then I heard this conversation in my head, and that mostly that evening, but also over the next few days, I just made this backbone for this story, which is this conversation, and I envisioned the conversation almost a bit like a character. Mm-hmm. So I wrote it without knowing that it was going to be about the topic that it's about, which is three girls trying to find a way around navigating a conversation about sexual violence in their friend group. So not nothing that happened to them. But I sort of found this out while I was writing, and it's something that happened also in my friend group. So I think that's why it sort of came out, and I sort of refitted the script to also play a little bit with the audience's imagination and with their expectations, and to make it into a film I would find interesting to watch. Yeah.
So it was the conversation that was like the starting point, because that was my another question, because I was wondering, the raping part and the sexual abuse is of course a very big subject, but it's very subtle in this film. So yeah, it's what you say. The conversation is like the more important thing. And is it that you wanted to show that people can have different perspectives on a subject like this?
I find it more for me, what I found the most, of course, I'm really interested in that. But what I found the most fascinating is how in a conversation about any difficult subject, especially when you're locked up together in a car, you can't talk about that topic for 6 hours either. So inevitably, even though you're very empathetic about this, what happens to your friends for a long time, and you're sort of like soaking in that feeling for a while, the next time, like moment, you're fighting over a bag of crisps. And I find this sort of push and pull between like empathy that is quite real, but also really superficial moments that are quite and a bit slightly narcissistic moments. I find that really interesting. And I didn't see it very often in the film. It's very often more like either people are really empathetic and they're like good, sort of really lovely people, or they're very narcissistic and superficial. But I think it coexists so often in reality. So I wanted to play with that and to see that in their interaction. Because I find it moving, strangely. I find it moving that people can, are like that. Yeah. And that their empathy has limitations, but that it's also real or something.
Yeah, I think you did it very well, that the balance between the empathy and also the natural being of, I don't know, friends discussing and talking about other people sitting in a car like this. And you said it's like you created a very small world. I mean, we see those girls sitting in the car, and it's almost all of the time the camera is inside the car, and we are very close to the people. How was it to do that? Because I can imagine that it must be quite intense. And how was it to shoot in such a small place?
Yeah, it was pretty awful, to be honest. I was 7 months pregnant when we shot it, so I had a big tummy. Leah says she directs the film, or kicking me or something. No, so I had a big tummy. It was a big heat wave in the Netherlands. So it was 38 degrees in the car. We had the car mounted on a low loader, which is like a big truck. It's very close to the road. And this low loader means that the girl that I wanted as a driver didn't have to drive because she didn't have her license yet. And I really wanted her in the film. And I was in the front in also a really hot cabin. And I had a connection with them over the intercom, or I was sort of like an MC on their radio, but a really nerdy one. So I was talking to them like that, but it was very, very intense. You're not near your actor. And I can be very chaotic in the way I communicate to actors when I have a lot of thoughts at once. So I really had to, after I saw something, I had to like breathe and then think and tell them what I would like to see different or what I would like to try out. It was really fun, but it was very tiring. And peeing was not an option.
You just went on and on. But how did you do it? Because did you prepare it very well with the actors before you went in the car? Or was it very scripted? That's
how we did it. It was extremely scripted. So basically the conversation that I wrote down with the glasses of wine was, I think I drank enough wine to make the flow a little bit natural enough that it didn't really feel super cluttery or something. And that helped to have that backbone of the conversation also throughout the rehearsals. I actually did try to improvise a lot, but we found out that that's quite difficult with this in most scenes. Very difficult with this topic, because I wanted to control how much information is released to the audience at what time. Mm-hmm. And actors can't, if a character knows something, they're not going to hide it. So if they improvise something, they're going to talk about the rape like the first 3 seconds. Like, So you have, and I wanted to be very deliberate in what information thing I released at what moment. So we found out we needed, for a lot of conversations, or a lot of the scenes, we needed this backbone. And there were a few exceptions, like the peeing scene was just like made up. That wasn't even in the script. We just found this place and we thought it was really interesting. Just the stench and all these truck drivers that pee and poo there. And we wanted that in the film, and also some scenes that have a clearer, where it's a bit more traditional, like the character has a goal and something's holding her back, like the scene where she sort of has to puke, but the girl is trying to bug her and show her the photos on her camera that she's stolen. That scene is improvised, but the rest is like scripted completely.
And why did you decide to? I mean, we figure out what they're talking about around halfway the film. Why did you decide to wait until that point?
Yeah, because I wrote it that way and I thought it worked. So when I was writing first, it sort of happened then. And for me, I found it interesting that you feel this tension in the car and you feel there's something there, but you can't really place it at first. And when it's also a piece of dialogue that's really hard to, when it's first mentioned that someone has been raped, it's so... it's such a bomb that I felt you want to get to know these characters a little bit and have a little bit of opportunity to look at them as well before you make everyone take positions like this,
Yeah.
So I guess that's another reason. But it was a bit of a risk because it's very long, that moment before you know. And it's quite something that you're asking from the audience. Like they have to hold a lot of balls up in the air before they have a hook or something to hold on to.
Yeah, that's right. But to me, it worked really, really well because of the small world, and you're very, close to the characters. So I think you keep interested in what's going on, and you want to know what they are talking about. So to me,
I'm happy it worked.
How many shooting days did you have for this film?
Really long. It was really generous. We had so it was a short budget, like a what do you call that? Low budget film from the film fund, which is still more than they get in a lot of other countries. So I shouldn't complain. But we got 4 days out of it, which is really a lot my crew really worked for almost nothing. And in many cases nothing to make these 4 shooting days possible. But that really made it possible for me to do this, also being pregnant and also in the heat, and the concentration spans. The scenes are very long, so you have a take that's like 8 minutes, and it was so hot that the actresses would also sometimes just forget where they were in the scene because their brains were just cooking.
Yeah.
So I really don't think it would have been good if we had any less than that. It was hard, tough enough as it was.
Yeah, I must say you did very well. I'm gonna see if there are any questions, but I don't think so. So thank you very much. I think we should move on to the next film, but thank you very much
Thank you very much.
Next up is Nicolas with his film This Means More. As said before, the winner of the Go Short Award for Best Student Film. Nicolas, can you tell us a bit more about what your film is about and why you wanted to make this film?
Yeah, so the film deals with, let's say, the experience of football supporters. Most precisely about supporters from Liverpool Football Club and the history of that they had in the past years. So it deals with a specific event in the late 80s, which was a stadium disaster in which a lot of people got crushed, and almost 100 people died. And so the film starts like is circling around this point, but it's a broader thought about what it means to be a supporter. Also, like today, that CG crowds are most used in like advertisement or in even in movies or anything. And so the film is like to emphasize this kind of experience, and also to see how this deals with like the architecture of the stadium. So it's like a mix of how the experience of supporters is constrained by the architecture, and how they can deal with the architecture to express themselves. So I think that's the core of the film, let's say.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Before we talk more about it, let's first see the fragment of your film, This Means More.
I can't remember the exact year, but George Best was playing. It's early 70s. And then sitting on the bar gate with a bit of a sway, got pushed off the bar, and I couldn't get back to the bar. People could see I was in trouble, so I got passed over the heads. You know. There was that sense of people helping each other out. It was like a sea, a massive humanity, really.
There we are. Well, I hope you all have a bit of a clue what it's about. As said, it's a film about the very big disaster happened in 1989, to be precise. Did you know about this disaster before making this film, or did you do some research, or how did it start? Where did your fascination to the subject come from?
Well, it's very simple. I have a close friend of mine who's like a deep supporter of like football, PSG, and so for 4 years I've been going to the bar with him and talking with a lot of people about their experience. And so we started talking about PSG, but then you start to talk about like other histories throughout Europe and the world. And so at some point I heard about the disaster, but I didn't really do strong research before beginning the film. I just like this idea that it was a key event in how the football has changed in the last decade, and it also relates to the history of PSG, because I mean there have been like history of like supporters being expelled from the stadium in PSG, and that's how I got to think about the event of Hillsborough. And then when I started the project, I was also fascinated by the relationship between like architecture, the architecture of the stadium, and the way people expressed in this architecture. So that's the whole like backbone of the film, is how a specific kind of architecture can like permit specific expression from the crowd. So in Liverpool at the time, it was standing terrace, so people were basically standing, and so you couldn't control the number of people who were in the stadium, and so you had this kind of mass that was that you couldn't count, that you couldn't like assign to a specific spot, and it was much more organic. And I started to be fascinated by this history, because it's something that you barely know now. That you don't know that, you don't see that nowadays in stadiums. So it's like every supporter talks about it as a myth, as something that's like a legend. And so for me, the first step was to investigate about the legend, let's say. And that's how I started to dig deeper and to look at documentaries that were made, books. Like a very important book for the project is one by Adrian Tempani, who's a Hillsborough survivor, and his book is called "And the Sun Shines Now," and it was very influential for the project.
And you also talked with some supporters, right? With who were there actually? Were they there during this disaster? Yeah, right.
Yeah. So I talked to five like a bit more supporters, and they were all Hillsborough survivors. So I got to meet them because at the time of making the film, there was a trial going on about like the trial of David Duckenfield, who was the head of police the day of the disaster. And so 30 years later, he was in trial for his decision at the time. And so there was a group of supporters who kind of stood against him. Let's say, like either there were testimonies, witness, or they just like shared their stories of the accident. And so I got to meet everyone because of the trial. Like the trial was the reason why they gather, and so I got to meet all of them because they were somehow related to this trial. And then I went to see them in Liverpool and did several interviews with them.
Nice. And you also make use of archive material, and I was wondering if you could tell a bit more about the process of you have this simulation, this crowd simulation that you make, this animation kind of part, but you also have the archive material and also the real world and the interviews with the survivors. How do you decide how to balance it out and how to make this like one film in which everything connects and falls into place?
It was very hard. It was I spent a lot of time editing, and I had a very, very good editor with me, Felix Rem, who helped me a lot. So he I was thinking a lot about the accident and everything because I knew quite some things about it, and every time I was going too much in my thought, he would bring me back to hers and say like, no, we have to balance, to do this and this. And so it was a discussion between it was a real discussion, the editing, and so the archive is at the core of the project. It's like I said, it's the myth, it's the legend, it's how it was before the accident, and the whole idea was to kind of like visually was to confront this kind of idea of which is brought by the archive, and the CG images that is to me contemporary of our time. So I mean by that I mean that the tool, the way the simulation is made in the tool, it is made depending on the current stadium. So the way the virtual supporters behave is because now we think about the stadium as a place where there are seats and people just stand and they stand when they have to celebrate something, And so my idea was to kind of confront the two and to not just to confront them, but to make them meet actually, because the accident was like a breaking point between two times, and I wanted to take the CG like image, which is our time, with the archive, and so I tried to remake the archive with the CG image, and it was very important that I was doing the CG work, so I took I don't know how to say that, but I learned the software and I did everything, like all the CG parties, I did it myself, also to see how it's working from like in fine grain, And then it was all about balancing that, because I knew that the CG images would be very, very compelling and fascinating. So I wanted everything else to be very strong. So like the voice the sound, the work of the sound, everything is it's very almost dry. You don't have much things, but it's to emphasize on the voice of the supporters, because I thought like the voice, the archive, the time when you see them in the bar, or the last shot in the bus. Mm-hmm. It's like very punctual, but because it's punctual, it's very powerful, I think. So like the main visual language had to be CG images and this kind of thing, but these were like punctual like elements that were like spices, you know, like they had to, I don't know, it's very precious, you know, it's almost the most precious part, so it has to be to come at specific time. And then I don't know, it was just like balance, try again, try and error, you know.
Make the puzzle fall into place.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. And you make this very clear distinction in the chapter 2 part. Why do you think it's important to also show that part, to make clear that there is this future and the community side of the supporters in the stadium? And to me, it makes it more real and more human, as like a contrast to the more the archive images are more like in the past, and then we have the computer generated images, and it makes it more real. Is that also the reason that you did this, or was there something else that you want to do with it?
So the chapter 2 thing is it's like a editing idea. So it's basically out of a document that was released just after the disaster. It was a document about like the transformation of stadium. It was a document about how to make stadium safer. And at some point I had like a bunch of like screen grab of the document. And one of them was chapter 2, and it was like a list of documents. And we put the documents at the beginning, and we thought that there was too many. We just removed them, and at the end, we just realized that we had put chapter 2 at that time, and that it was like splitting the movie in two. So it was not premeditated or anything. It was just like by happenstance, let's say. And for me, it was it marked the event. Like like in an event, you have like a before and an after, and so it was like a splitting thing. And it was also to signify like the kind of the moving of time. You know, we are back from where we started, back in our time, and then it's like what we do with that. And so the supporters talk about also at the end, like how they can deal, like how they can still be supporters, even though like the stadium is more and more controlled. It's harder and harder to get tickets to go there because the prices have rise a lot. And so it was like to bring back to our time and to ask, you know, like it's not over because stadium has changed. It's just like the struggle keeps on, and so to see how you can deal with that, you know. So, and it was to bring this kind of ambiguity at the end of what you can still do something. And so the last sentence by the supporter when we see the last traveling in the bus was very important, because it was like something I recorded quite like really rapidly, and it was strong because it embedded this kind of ambiguity. Like the supporter knows that he is kind of not welcome anymore in the stadium as like authentic, like old school supporters, but at the same time he can't really give up because it's so embedded in his life that is all he has to do with that. And I think that it resonates with a lot more than just going to the football, or, you know. I don't know if that makes sense. But.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, in England it's such a big culture, the whole football thing. That's interesting. There is a question from someone, and I'm gonna read it out loud. Someone says, I was wondering, are any of the supporters you spoke to in the archive footage?
No, the archive was there before, and I just like I think the archive is from the 70s, and so the football supporters I talked to, they are they have different age, but most of them are around the 50s. But only one is old enough to have been in the archive, actually, like the oldest one, who's around 60 years old. But the other one, they were just like very young at the time of the archive, actually.
Yeah, right. Yeah, and just a little bit more about you as a filmmaker, because you said this is your first film at Frenois, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, that's very well done, first of all. But what is it that you're gonna do next? Because you have a background in different kind of things, right? Can you maybe tell us a little bit more about your background and what are your plans for the future?
Yeah, well, for the next film I'm doing, it's how to say that. I want to keep on focusing on like one of the goal of the film as well was to show technology and how technology has a specific ideology, let's say. So for crowd simulation, the ideology is, for me, is kind of obvious. And so for my next film, I want to focus on that. So I like to personally investigate on a topic, use a specific technology, like visual imagery technology, and make this technology look at what it doesn't look usually. So it's like just like misuse this technology. I mean, it's quite abstract like that, but
yeah, but it's also quite specific already. If you're in your first year, it's really cool that you really know what you're making. Sometimes I still don't know what I'm making.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't know. It's just like what I'm doing now with my next project is I want to emphasize on that.
Okay.
And yeah, like it's also, I don't know, I like very much the film of Harun Farocki, which is like, he also looks at the way technical images are used in our society, this kind of thing. It's like a mix of thinking about the technology, its impact, and also what I want to do is to use this technology, because Farocki, he just look at the technology, he points, he's an editor, but I want to...
and you immerse yourself in it in a way.
Yeah, exactly, and to use it and to create other images with this technology. That's what I tried to do with the movie. I tried to make the crowd simulation a little bit more like the archive, just not to oppose them, but to kind of blend, or to embrace them.
That's really original.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, it is.
It is. Let's see. No, there are no questions. So yeah, I think due to the time, we should continue to the next film. But thank you very much, Nicolas. And I'm very curious to your next project. So hope to see them soon. Next up is Marieke. Thank you very much for being here as well. You're the winner of the Go Short Award for Best Dutch Film. So congratulations on that. Before we see a fragment out of your film, So I Stay, just a small introduction. It's about a girl who is wandering around at the gas station. And to me, it's like she's living her own kind of fantasy and is living in her own world, or making her own film, more or less. I mean, it's very fascinating, the way she thinks and the way she wanders around. Let's talk about that, but first see the fragment of the film.
I'm looking for adventure, hidden in the trash, but I haven't lived in Berlin yet. I'm a new generation, nobody understands me. I don't belong to anybody, I live in the moment. People call me the mystic kid. I'm looking for adventure, might be hidden in the trash, but I haven't lived in Berlin yet. I'm a new generation.
Yes. All right. Yeah, it's also what she sings in the film. She's looking for adventure. How did you come up with this story? Why did you want to tell this and show the audience this girl with her imagination and her way of doing?
Well, I cannot really give a straight answer to that question because there were a combination of things that made this film. First of all, and I've been on gas stations a lot, and when I'm there, I always have a kind of object feeling, like I want to be there, but also I don't want to be there because everybody is going and on this way, and the place is not made for staying there because it's made for people to pass as soon as possible. But there are actually people staying, like truck drivers or homeless people, even refugees. So I'm always interested in these places. And at the same time, I met this girl who plays the main character. And I really knew immediately she has to be in a film because she is really self-conscious in the way she is. Like, I saw her acting actually, and she has a really self-conscious way of acting that you can see she is acting. And in the same time, she is really naive. So that's a really weird combination actually, because it's the opposite. And I'm thinking actually a lot about being self-conscious and acting in the real life, and people trying to make their life, because you can make everything, but at the same time everybody wants to be really authentic and have the authentic experience and the authentic adventure. So I wanted to do that with her because she has like authenticity, but at the same time you can see a really artificial side in her. And that all combined in one night that I wrote this script.
So it was based on the person that on the main character that you wrote the script on, or was it there in your head already?
Actually, I don't really remember the following of things, but I think it was really because I met her and then I saw her doing things in my head, and but it also was because it's not that she is really like the main character in reality, but I didn't make her act in a different way. So she is how she is in the film, but the storyline maybe is more based on my own life and how I am. And I'm also thinking a lot about, I don't know, there's a story of Madame Bovary, who really read a lot of novels, and she was always living in the great disappointment actually that her life was not like in the novels. And I feel myself a little bit like this, but then instead of novels, more movies, that I'm always comparing my life in a, not consciously maybe, but to movies. You are making a movie, a fiction day, and you come back. It's in your imagination. It was already a kind of movie, this holiday. But there's also the disappointment when your life is actually boring and not like in the films. So actually she is like Madame Bovary, but then the modern millennial version.
Yeah. In a film, the film version, the millennial film version. There's a question, and I'm very curious about this too. Was everything scripted, or was there a lot of improvisation from the character, from the actress?
Actually, everything was scripted. Yeah, but I said to her when she didn't know her lines, or she could say everything, whatever she wanted, and but then she knew always her lines. But and sometimes we shot a scene, somebody walking, and we shot the scene. There were some improvisations, by the way, yeah, but most things were scripted. But it's written in a kind of improvised way.
Oh, right.
So it improvised, I think, sometimes.
Yes. And what about the song? I mean, the song which says "I'm looking for adventure." Did you wrote that or?
Yes, yeah.
Right, because it's very catchy and it's really nice that it's coming back a few times and it suits very well into the film. How did you come up with this song?
I wanted because she has something childish, actually, the character, and I wanted to have a song that, and in the whole film, actually, I didn't want metaphors or something. I wanted to be everything really clear. It's almost ugly how looking for adventure. It's really first line sentences, and I don't know. I was just thinking like how childs would sing a song, and I just wrote it, bum bum bum, like that.
Nice.
Yeah.
Because you're not only a filmmaker. I read that you are you have a background in theater. You said it before. And well, there's a question about that as well, and I would like to start with that. How do you feel about the difference between film and theoretical performance?
Yeah, I can talk for a few hours about the difference. Actually, there's a lot of difference. But for example, this film, how she acts.
Sometimes you are not.
We are not trying to only like in.
I'm sorry. I hope everybody can still follow because sometimes the images are quite.
I'm there.
Yes, I think you are.
I think in the theater performance that I do, which is not like the traditional theater, we are never trying to hide the medium. So in film, it's more that you want to your audience to be immersed in the film, forgetting that you are watching a film. And her way of acting in the film is really theatrical. So you know all the time she is acting, and because she is so dramatic. And I think for a lot of people, this is also considered as bad movie acting, because you cannot, as a watcher, forget that you are watching her acting. I don't remember the question, actually. The difference between theater and
yeah, how do you feel about the differences?
Also, it's really easy to a place, of course, and in theater it will be always a reenactment of a place or a reenactment of a situation. So it's always a copy of a copy, more than in film. And for me, theater is also a bit about that you recreate a situation and that you can watch this as an audience, more than film maybe, where you can take the camera to a situation and be more close to the real, maybe.
Yeah, I hope
for me, because I've been in places and I cannot create theater. It's too expensive, or you have to do an abstract version, and that's a bit, you could do, but I prefer to take the camera to a place and then,
And do you want to go on with film, or what is it that you like doing most? Hope this works. Did you hear me or not?
No, sorry.
Oh, sorry. I was asking, what do you prefer most? Is it the theoretical side, or maybe more film, or is this, how do you, or do you want to in the future maybe still do it the way you do it now, that you try to, I don't know, implement those elements of theater in your filmmaking? What do you prefer? How do you think about that?
At the moment, I would really like to make film, also because I really like to be dramatic myself, but I don't want people to watch that. So I'm less interested in being on stage myself. So I'm more drawn towards film at the moment, but I think I will always have a theatrical, I take my experience in theater to filmmaking, of course. Also because the way we make theater in the company I work is always that we create scenes, and 1 week before we have the premiere, we just glue them, or a few weeks before, we glue them together, bam, and then you have the theater. So there is a lot of improvisation, and always the day before you can change everything. Which is in film, it's more a stiff medium in the process, which was also my problem, that I couldn't say to the editor, oh no, I want everything the other way, because he would go crazy. But yeah, I think I will always direct in a theater way.
Yeah. And how did you gather your team? Are there some people in your team, in your crew, who have a background in theater as well, or is it really a film crew?
Yes, I had one of my classmates from theater, and she really had my back in the whole project. She was always reading what I wrote, and on the set she was there. She was also fixing a lot of location things. Actually, she did kind of production, and she was my sparring partner. And filmmakers and people who were in the field. So it was also really awkward, because what I didn't know anything about the jargon of filmmaking, and they knew. So I had to ask, what do you say, action, and which I really didn't know anything, which was really awkward actually for the filmmakers.
Yeah, but now you do know. You had a good first experience with filmmaking then.
Yes. But also in the post-production, it was also really, I didn't know that we had to make a DCP, or that it has to go to a sound. I didn't even know it has to go to a sound editor. I didn't know anything. So I think sometimes they were also like, we have to do it this way, because you don't know about filmmaking yet. So sometimes I had to stay strong.
Yeah, was it difficult sometimes?
Yes.
I'm really curious, especially somehow about how it was to work with an.
I'm there.
Yeah, Stefanie was asking a question to you.
Sorry, that was. It looked like you had stopped talking, but you were frozen. So I didn't want to be rude. I was just really curious what it was like, especially with the editor you were mentioning a little bit, because I can imagine, well, they really have experience in telling a story, but I can imagine that you want to work intuitively, because you're just starting to explore your voice in film. And I can imagine it's you sometimes want to do it your own way, and they have an opinion and stuff. And
yes, well, my editor was really great, because it was, I think, his first fiction also. So he was also really into experimenting.
Oh, that's fun. So you can do it together.
It was really nice with him. So I was really happy with him. And I had the script and the different scenes, but we didn't have the following of the scenes. So it was like we do in theater, that we just put that scene in front of that. We could actually mix it all the time like a puzzle. And that he also wanted to try, and he was really enthusiastic. So he was really not a problem. Like, he was great. But sometimes later I got often the sentence like, as if they say that you have to do it like that because you don't know about filmmaking, but really you have to do like this. Or for example, when you see a bird flying, no, I don't have an example actually.
I really want to know where that was going.
But am I still there?
Yes, you are.
What?
We were very curious about the thing you were trying to say, but
With the bird.
never mind.
No, stupid example. No, it's just sometimes things are normal in film, that it has to be like that. When you see a bird flying, maybe you also hear the bird.
Yeah, okay, I understand. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was the same for me.
For example, I want a silence. What? No, I'm not gonna give examples.
What were you want to say, Stefanie?
Oh, I recognize when I got out of science and I started to make films, I was, I felt like I had a little bit of a life already, and I had ideas about how I wanted to make films, and then I got into the film academy, and they're really about telling you how it's done, and it was I remember it's also those kind of situations a lot where it's a bit like there's a bird, you have to hear the bird and that sort of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Feel free to do it your own way as well, and just to.
I cannot hear anymore the sentence, only like in film you cannot have a silence, or in film, and I was always like, yeah.
There are no strict rules. You don't want to live by those strict rules.
No, it's just lazy filmmaking,
but when
right?
there's a silence in film, people think
technically this is sometimes going a bit wrong. You're frozen sometimes, but it's okay. I think we understand that you want to, I don't know, break out of the norms and the rules that were made to make films. So I think that's a really nice ending for this Q&A session, because it's almost the time's up. I hope you really liked it. Thank you again so much for being here with us and to talk a bit more about your films. And as I said in the beginning to the audience, if you haven't watched all the films that you want to see, please do so very quickly, because you have one more day and it's online until tomorrow. Thank you for watching, and I really hope to see you all next year in Nijmegen at Go Short. Bye.